Working full-time on your own game sounds like a dream. You quit your job, go all in, and finally have time to build your game. I did exactly that. I ran an indie game studio for 8 years, and it ended with a nervous breakdown and 6-figure debt. This video is a game dev reality check. It's about when going full-time is a mistake and when it actually makes sense. I'm not here to sell you the dream. I'm here to help you avoid costly mistakes. The good news is you don't need a publisher or an investor. The bad news, for most people, going full-time too early leads to burnout and quitting. And this isn't just my experience. We'll look at real concrete examples later.
There's no guarantee, so don't spend 6 years making your games.
This is super important. It can honestly ruin your life. From the outside, our studio looked successful. We ran a crowdfunding campaign, had a publisher deal, and did client work for companies like Disney, Sega, and Netflix. But more than half our time was client work. This wasn't a dream, it was survival. Our core mistake was believing that working hard would solve everything. Crunch isn't a solution. It's a band-aid for bad planning and overscoping. We knew it was bad, but we convinced ourselves it would get better after funding or release. That's the trap. If your current setup is causing stress and debt, there is no later. It has to be fixed now. Many beginners look for a magic bullet, a course or a shortcut, but those don't fix structural problems. We didn't stop to recess, we just added more hours. And that decision is what eventually broke us. I wish we had a checklist that showed us we weren't ready. So I made one, a simple reality check you can get for free on my website. One thing that we got right was that we had great art skills. We both had a bachelor in arts and we teamed up with a programmer. You need skills that are good enough to get you hired within design, audio, art or code. You can get those skills through self-education or a good school. You don't need all the skills, but you do need one core skill you can carry the project with. Pick one area that you find enjoyable and interesting and really study that.
If you want to start making games right now and you have no experience, just get started. That's all you gotta worry about. Just get started. Start making games and start finishing projects. Finish small little test games. Even just start cloning other games, right? Figure out if you even like doing it. Because if you don't like doing it, you saved yourself a lot of trouble.
You don't need a big or advanced game. You need a good one. How do you know it's good? That is the hard part. Validate early on ideas before you prototype. Share your ideas with a fellow game dev and hear what they think. Are they excited and suggest ideas? Or do they say cool and move on?
The easier it is to sort of pitch your game, whether it's in words or an image, for somebody to understand and grasp what it's about and who might be interested in playing it, the better. Like my climbing game, I really wanted it to be immediately clear that this is a game that somehow relates to getting over it with Bennett Foddy. Here's the reality, right? Like you need to connect with your audience somehow with everything about the game. Right? The title, the art, everything should hopefully spark some curiosity. And it should also be clear what kind of game you're making.
What I learned by releasing my own games and working on a few dozen other games is that the idea of your game carries the most weight. What fantasy is it fulfilling? What's the big hook that makes your game different? I'm not going to go too much into detail here, since it's a full video on its own. Without a good hook, there isn't a game worth playing. Playtest early and often. The game doesn't need a gameplay loop. Test a movement, test one specific mechanic. Once you have the gameplay loop, test that. Write down the feedback, decipher it, and iterate on the game until it feels amazing to play. Don't keep adding features and overcomplicate your game. A few simple mechanics that work really well together are better than a lot of buggy features. Eventually, your game reaches the announcement stage. This can take months or even years. You cut together a trailer and publish it. How is the response? Did you get real engagement and traction? If not, it might be smart to cancel your game, rethink how your game is presented, pivot hard, or release it fast and move on. If your game doesn't get real attention, it's showing you that the core of the game isn't working. It's better to know this early than after spending 5 years on your game. Do you know where your salary goes? How much money do you actually need to survive? If you don't know that, how are you supposed to know how much to save or how much to ask in funding? Once you get an overview, it's often surprising how much you can cut. Is a new phone really important? Or is reaching your game dev goals more important? Cut costs and start saving so you can build runway. You don't have to live on spaghetti and ketchup forever, but it's worth doing until you're stable.
When I went full-time, I had a lot of savings and my wife was making money. I didn't technically need YouTube as an income. Making some money made the emotional decision to quit my job a little easier. It was definitely important in the decision in the sense of just more from an emotional standpoint.
Team up with other people. It reduces the time it takes to make a game, and it directly lowers your risk. External funding should be the last resort. Only consider it if you truly need a large chunk of money. This includes publishers, investors, crowdfunding, and grants, all of which comes with risk. Investments are extremely rare, and funding is essentially a loan. The publisher takes 100% until they recoup their costs. You can easily spend months pitching and end up with nothing, wasting time you could have spent improving your game. The lead game designer on Inside and Limbo started a studio without chasing funding. Instead, he proved that he could actually make and publish a solid game and released his game 140. That got the snowball rolling and shows why it's critical to start small. If you can work part-time and save a short runway, that is often the safest approach. If you haven't released a commercial game before, this is usually the smartest path. Overnight success stories rarely mentions the years of work that came before. Once you understand how to produce a game from start to finish and sell it on Steam, you're in a much better position to attempt a bigger game or look for funding. A back catalog of release games is a way to fund future projects. Landfall Games are masters at this. They focus on the right features without going overboard and great execution. Because of their back catalog, they can afford to take bigger risks, like co-creating Peak.
The moment I realized that making games was gonna pay my bills was when I released it. Up until that point, I just had no idea. You just don't know. And I released Punch a Bunch, and now that game didn't sell a ton of copies, but did well enough for me. Within like a couple of weeks, it had outperformed 3 years of YouTube income. It very quickly added up to $150,000, which sounds like a lot, but if you divide that by 3 years, it took me 3 years to make. I mean, it's pretty good, but it's nothing crazy. But it still made me realize this is how you do it. You just focus on making a good game. That's much better. And it's much more long-term, sustainable.
Chances are you're already deep in developing your game. Be honest with yourself and ask if the scope is simply too big, or whether you need to cut things down to make it realistic. Ask yourself, why are you doing this? Is it to make a lot of money? Or do you just love making games? If it's the latter, maybe it doesn't need to be a full-time thing. For many people, keeping game dev as a hobby actually reduces risk and makes the process more enjoyable. Now ask yourself the hard question. What happens if your game fails? Are you forced to take a delivery job just to get by? That's what happened to me, and it forced me to reconsider everything.
I think if you're debating whether to go full-time or not, I think it's important to realize that if you want to make games for a living, at some point I do think it is very beneficial to go full-time. Making games takes a lot of time and a lot of mental energy. Being tied up with work and coming home and having to do chores and all this stuff, right? It's long-term, I don't think it's very sustainable. You have to have some sort of a plan, right? But you also need to bake in periods of working full-time on your game. Like if you can get a part-time job at Starbucks, whatever you need to do to kind of cover your bills and stuff, but still allow time to make your game.
If you're about to quit your job or you're deep into a game that's starting to scare you, I offer a paid reality check call. No hype or promises, just honest feedback. Professional game dev isn't easy. It's a highly competitive market, with great games being released every single day. On my own journey, I realized that a trade-off or going full-time wasn't worth it for me. Today I work full-time in game dev while building my own projects part-time. I focus on proving game ideas early, with a heavy emphasis on playtesting. I'm still paying financially for my missteps, but I'm far happier and the path forward feels so much simpler. If you are overworked and mentally drained, be honest with yourself. Maybe it's time to change course. Full-time isn't the goal. Sustainable process is.
Problem is, you just won't know if your game is going to sell well unless you make a YouTube video and you're getting 10 million hits on it, and it's like everyone is like, oh my god, give me this game, right? Like then you can like comfortably quit your job and probably it's going to be fine, right? Save up your money, don't spend a bunch of money. Work hard and then take a break, and then make sure that your savings cover that break.
If focus has been an issue for you, I made a video about how game jams and side projects can quietly hurt your progress. It connects directly to what we talked about time management. See you!